What happens when life takes away the people you thought you could not live without? What happens when the hands you trusted let go, one by one? What happens when the voices that once called your name with love become silent? Most people never think about that day. They push it far from their minds. They say, "That could never be me." They say, "My family would never turn their backs on me." They say, "My friends would never leave me in my worst hour." They say, "If I ever fell, someone would be there." And for some, this is their reality. So if you're tired, if you feel forgotten, if you are carrying pain that nobody sees, stay with this story. Because this one may speak to a part of you that has been silent for too long. But life has a strange way of testing the words we say so easily when everything is still comfortable. And for one man named Michael, that test came harder than he ever imagined. Michael grew up in a small mountain town in Colorado, where the winters were long, the mornings were cold, and most people knew each other by name. It was the kind of place where the same pickup trucks were parked outside the same diners every week, where children grew up around pine trees, church bells, and roads that curved through open land. Nothing in that town looked rich, but to Michael, it felt full. It felt safe. It felt like the kind of life that would always be there. His father, David, owned a small woodworking and repair barn just outside town, with tools on the walls, sawdust on the floor, and the smell of fresh-cut wood hanging in the air from sunrise to evening. People came to David for all kinds of work: broken cabinets, porch rails, farm gates, tables, storage shelves, fence posts. He built what people needed, and he built it well. But more than that, he was known as a man whose word meant something. In a world where people often overpromised and underdelivered, Michael's father was different. If he told you Friday, he meant Friday. If he said he would fix it, he fixed it. If he shook your hand, you could trust him. From the time Michael was old enough to carry small pieces of wood, he worked beside his father, first sweeping the floor, then sorting nails, then handing over tools, then learning measurements, then learning cuts, then learning how to stand still and listen when a customer explained what they needed. His father used to tell him, "A man is not respected because he talks big. A man is respected because people can lean their weight on his word." Michael loved that line. He loved everything about the barn: the rhythm, the smell, the calm, the way his father's hands moved with patience, the way ordinary pieces of wood became useful things. His mother had died when he was young, so his father was more than a parent. He was teacher, protector, provider, and example. The barn was more than a workplace. It was Michael's world, and he believed, with the quiet confidence of a young man who still trusted tomorrow, that one day all of it would be his to carry forward. There were three other people Michael trusted deeply. The first was his older cousin, Derek, who lived just 15 minutes away and had always spoken like family meant everything. The second was his closest friend, Aaron, who had been beside him since childhood. The third was Claire, the woman Michael thought he would marry. They were not perfect people. No one is. But they were woven so naturally into his everyday life that Michael never imagined a future without them. He believed that if his life ever shook, they would be the ones standing beside him when the dust settled. That belief would later become one of the deepest wounds he had ever known. At 28, Michael's life did not look glamorous, but it looked steady. He worked in the barn with his father. He attended church on Sundays. He met Aaron for coffee every Thursday. He took Claire on simple dates. A few long drives, diner breakfasts, walks near the lake outside town. He was not rich, he was not famous, but he had peace. And sometimes peace is so quiet, you do not realize how precious it is until it is torn away. The first sign that something was wrong came in the middle of autumn. David started getting tired too easily. At first, Michael thought it was just age. Then he noticed more. His father was sitting down more often, forgetting small things, coughing at odd times, growing weaker in ways that felt unusual for a man who had always carried himself like oak. "Maybe I should see a doctor," his father finally said one evening, leaning against the barn door with one hand pressed against his chest. Michael looked up immediately. His father almost never admitted weakness. That sentence alone made fear enter the room. The tests took time, the waiting took longer, and then came the answer nobody wants. Advanced heart failure, serious, dangerous, unpredictable. Michael felt the ground inside him shift. He drove his father to appointments, managed work, filled prescriptions, handled customers, pretended to be stronger than he felt. And every night, after making sure his father had everything he needed, Michael would sit alone in the truck outside the house and stare at the steering wheel, asking questions he could not answer. How did this happen so fast? Why now? What am I supposed to do if he gets worse? Claire told him to stay hopeful. Aaron told him everything would probably work out. Derek promised, whatever happens, you are not going through this alone. Michael held on to those words like ropes, but he had no idea how quickly those ropes would slip out of his hands. Winter came early that year. Snow fell hard before Thanksgiving. The barn grew colder. David grew weaker. Then one morning before sunrise, Michael heard something hit the floor in the kitchen. He ran in and found his father collapsed beside the counter. The ride to the hospital felt endless. The waiting room felt cruel. The fluorescent lights, the quiet footsteps, the machine noises, the way nurses spoke in careful voices. It all felt like standing in a place where the world had stopped. But no one had told your heart how to stop with it. His father survived that day, but he did not come back the same. From that point on, he needed more help, more rest, more watching. The man who had once taught Michael how to carry weight now struggled to lift a cup without shaking. One night, after a long silence, David looked at Michael from his chair near the window and said, "Son, listen carefully. There may come a time when the people you think will stay do not stay." Michael shook his head. "Do not talk like that." But his father kept going. "If that day comes, do not let bitterness become your home. Stand, pray, work, build again." Michael felt anger rise in him then, not at his father, at life, at the unfairness of hearing final wisdom when what he really wanted was more time. "Stop talking like you are leaving," he said quietly. His father just looked at him with tired, knowing eyes. Sometimes love prepares you before loss arrives. 3 weeks later, before dawn touched the mountains, David died in his sleep. The funeral brought the whole town out. People stood in coats under a gray sky. Men removed their hats. Women wiped their eyes. The pastor spoke about legacy, about faithfulness, about honest work, about how a good name can outlive a body. Michael heard the words, but they felt far away. His ears worked, his mind did not. He stood beside the grave, looking at the casket as if his body had arrived there, but his soul was still trying to catch up. Claire held his arm. Aaron stood behind him. Derek shook hands with relatives and spoke kindly to neighbors. From the outside, it looked like Michael was supported. From the outside, it looked like love surrounded him. And this is what makes some heartbreak so sharp. Sometimes abandonment does not happen all at once. It happens after the funeral, after the casseroles, after the hugs, after everybody goes back to their lives and leaves you standing in the ruins of yours. Michael and his father had never fully completed the legal transfer of the barn property. It sat on land connected to an older family arrangement that involved papers, signatures, and relatives who had long stopped caring until there was something to claim. Michael knew things were not fully settled. He just never imagined anyone would use that moment against him. Derek arrived at the house 3 days after the funeral with 2 men Michael barely knew and a folder under his arm. His face was different, not cruel exactly, colder, more official, less like family. "What is this?" Michael asked, still half exhausted from grief and paperwork. Derek set the folder down and said, "The land title was never finalized the way Uncle David thought. The property has to go through family review. Until it does, the barn cannot legally operate under your control." Michael stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Derek kept his tone flat. "There are claims. There are questions. There are responsibilities. You cannot just assume it is yours." Michael felt something hot and sharp rise inside him. Assume? I worked in that barn my whole life. He built that place for us. You know that. Derek looked away for half a second, then back again. "This is not personal. This is process." That sentence hit like a slap. Not personal. A man had just buried his father. The workshop that held his whole life was now being frozen by family claims. And Derek, the same man who had promised he would not face this alone, was speaking like an attorney instead of blood. Within 10 days, Michael was informed that he could not continue using the barn until the dispute was resolved. Tools were inventoried, access was restricted, locks were changed. The place where he had learned to become a man was closed to him like he was a stranger. That should have been enough pain for one season. But pain, when it comes hard, often arrives in layers. Michael went to Aaron first. If family had become cold, surely friendship would hold. Surely one place would still feel safe. He drove over late one afternoon, parked outside Aaron's house, and sat for a moment trying to gather himself. Then he knocked. Aaron opened the door with surprise on his face. "Hey, man," Michael tried to speak calmly. "I need to talk to you." They sat in the garage. Michael explained the property problem, the legal freeze, the money stress, the grief, the fear. He did not ask for much, just help thinking clearly. Maybe a place to store a few things if needed. Maybe someone to stand close in the confusion. Aaron listened, nodded, said, "Wow," a few times, and then leaned back with the uncomfortable expression of someone who wishes the conversation would end. "You know I care about you," Aaron said, "but I'm trying to stay out of family drama these days." Michael blinked. "Family drama?" Aaron shrugged awkwardly. "I just mean, stuff like this gets messy, you know? Lawyers, disputes, emotions. I do not want to get pulled into something complicated." Michael stared at him in disbelief. He had not come asking for war. He had come asking for friendship. But some people are happy to stand near your joy and terrified to stand near your pain. He left Aaron's house feeling smaller than when he arrived, but he still had Claire. Surely Claire would understand. Surely love would not flinch where friendship had. Claire met him at a coffee shop near the highway, where soft music played in the background and people typed on laptops as if the world was normal. Michael looked at her face and wanted comfort so badly that it almost hurt to breathe. He reached for her hand. She let him hold it, but something in her was already distant. He told her everything. The barn, Derek, the money pressure, the fear that he might lose the house too if things dragged on, the emptiness after his father's death. He talked longer than usual because he was desperate to be understood. When he finally stopped, Claire lowered her eyes and spoke very carefully, too carefully. That was when Michael knew something was wrong. "I've been thinking a lot," she said. The moment those words came out, his stomach turned. She kept going. "I care about you, I really do, but your life is changing in ways that I am not ready to carry." He looked at her like he had misheard. "What does that mean?" She swallowed. "It means everything is unstable right now. Your future, your living situation, the legal mess, your grief, all of it. And I do not think I can do this." Michael's face went still. Not because he was calm, because some pain is so sharp that your body freezes before it bleeds. "You are leaving?" he asked. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed firm. "I think it is best." Best. What a strange word. Best for who? Best for the person drowning, or the person afraid of getting wet? He walked out of that coffee shop into freezing air and did not remember how he got back to his truck. He sat there gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard, staring through the windshield at nothing. His father was gone. The barn was gone. The family had turned into paperwork. Friendship had turned into distance. Love had turned into an exit. And in that moment, something inside him cracked. The house became unbearable. Every room carried memory. Every object reminded him of what used to be whole. His father's chair, a coffee mug by the sink, the old coat hanging near the door, the silence at night, was the stillness in the morning. Then came the final blow. Because of debts, delays, and the ongoing property issue, the house itself could not be safely kept under Michael's name without money he did not have. A lawyer explained it to him in cold, practical language. He heard just enough to understand one thing. He could not stay. So he packed what he could into an old trailer. Clothes, a few books, some hand tools, his father's worn Bible, a framed photo from when he was 13, standing beside David outside the barn, both of them smiling like life would always be that simple. Then he left. No ceremony, no dramatic goodbye. Just one man driving away from the only life he had known, with more grief than answers and nowhere he truly belonged. He rented a rundown cabin outside town, almost hidden near the tree line where the road narrowed and snow drifted against the porch. The place had been empty for years. The roof leaked in one corner. The heater worked when it felt like it. The windows rattled when the wind pushed hard enough, but it was cheap. And at that point, cheap was the only mercy he could afford. The first night there, Michael sat on the edge of the bed in his jacket because the room was too cold to take it off. The silence in that cabin felt different from the silence at home. At home, silence meant absence. Here, silence meant exile. He tried not to think. He failed. He stared at the walls, the chipped sink, the single lamp, the muddy boots by the door, and then at his own hands. Hands that had built things, hands that had worked beside his father, hands that now felt empty. He bowed his head and cried, not politely, not quietly, not the kind of tears people feel safe seeing. These were the tears that come when a man finally reaches the edge of his strength and realizes there is no one around to witness the fall. God, he whispered into the dark, his voice shaking. I do not know what you are doing. I do not know why everything is gone. I do not know why the people I trusted walked away. I do not know why this hurts so much. Then he stopped speaking. Because there are moments when words are too small for grief. And in that long silence, with the wind pressing against the cabin walls and the cold air slipping through the cracks, Michael felt something he could not explain, whether it's a voice in the room or a miracle in the sky. All he knew was a deep, steady knowing inside him. In fact, you are still here. That was it. Simple. Quiet. But it pierced the darkness. You're still here. Michael closed his eyes and took a slow breath, then another. Then he whispered, if I am still here, then show me how to stand.
The next morning, nothing outside had changed. The cabin was still ugly. His future was still uncertain. The people who left had not returned, but something inside him had moved a little. Just enough. Enough for one decision. He would not stay there and rot. He would not spend every day replaying betrayal until it poisoned his spirit. He would not let the people who walked away decide what his life became. He started small, with small acts done honestly. That is how real rebuilding begins. He fixed the broken porch step, patched the leak in the roof with salvaged material,
uncleared snow from the path, built a sturdier shelf inside from scrap wood, used one of the hand tools he had kept to repair the front gate that barely closed. None of it was glamorous, no one applauded, no one saw it, but every repaired thing whispered the same message back to him. Broken does not always mean finished. He found temporary work stacking lumber at a local supply yard. It paid little, it exhausted him, but it kept him moving. And movement matters when grief tries to turn your soul into stone. Weeks passed, then months. Michael kept working, at the yard by day, on small repairs in the cabin by night. Sometimes he still cried. Sometimes he still felt anger rise when he thought of Derek, Aaron, or Claire. Sometimes he wanted to call them all and demand answers, demand remorse, demand explanation. But every time he reached for that bitterness, he remembered his father's words. Do not let bitterness become your home. So instead of chasing closure from people who had already shown him their limits, Michael put his energy into what was still in his hands: work, prayer, discipline, patience. Then one afternoon, while unloading boards at the supply yard, he noticed a man struggling beside an old trailer with a snapped side panel and a loose hinge. The man looked frustrated, cold, and in a hurry. Without thinking, Michael stepped over and said, "You want a hand?" The man nodded gratefully. Michael studied the problem, grabbed a few tools from the yard, and repaired the trailer well enough for it to get safely back on the road. The man tested it twice, then turned and looked at Michael with real surprise. "You do this for a living?" Michael paused, then answered, "I used to. I'm trying again." That sentence became important, because it was honest. He was trying again. And sometimes that is where resurrection starts, not in confidence, but in willingness. The man's name was Victor. He owned a small property maintenance company in the next town over. He asked Michael if he knew how to repair gates, storage sheds, fencing, and minor wood structures. Michael almost laughed. That was the language of his whole life. Victor gave him one job, a damaged fence line behind a rental property. Michael completed it carefully, cleaned up afterward, and charged fairly. Victor gave him another, then began recommending him to other clients. Soon, Michael was working weekends on small repair jobs outside his lumberyard hours. Cabin steps, barn doors, leaning fences, deck rails, storage racks, simple things, useful things, things people needed and were willing to pay for. For the first time since his father died, Michael felt the old rhythm return to his hands. Measure, cut, fit, secure. Step back, improve, finish. And each evening when he returned to the cabin, tired and sore, he would place his father's Bible on the table, sit down, and whisper the same quiet line. Thank you for today. Not because the pain was gone, because he was learning to thank God in the middle of the rebuilding, not only at the end of it. One spring, Victor brought Michael onto a larger job restoring storm-damaged cabins at a lakeside retreat center. The place had been hit by high winds, roofs were damaged, porches were torn, storage doors had blown loose, woodwork throughout the property needed skilled hands. Michael quietly worked harder than anyone there. He arrived early, left late, fixed what others missed, solved practical problems without complaining. The retreat owner noticed, then the owner's brother noticed, then a contractor from another county noticed. That is how some doors open, not with announcements, with consistency. Work led to more work. His name began to travel. A ranch owner needed a bunkhouse repaired. A church needed new storage shelving and entry steps. A family needed a custom table and benches after seeing something Michael had built at the retreat. Slowly, the man who had been left alone in a freezing cabin began to become known again. He never demanded recognition. His work spoke for him. Excellence has a way of speaking for itself when given enough time. 2 years passed, then 3. The cabin that once felt like exile became something else. A workshop was added behind it, then extended, then organized. The porch was rebuilt fully. The inside was warm now, simple but solid. Every broken thing Michael had once patched temporarily, he eventually rebuilt properly. And as he rebuilt the place, he realized something sacred had happened. The cabin had changed because he had changed. What began as survival had become purpose. What began as grief had become discipline. What began as abandonment had become foundation. He hired one young helper, then another, just enough to share the work and teach what he had learned. And he taught them not only measurements and tools, but patience, honesty, and the importance of finishing what you begin. He sounded more and more like his father each year. One day he noticed it and smiled to himself. Pain had taken much, but it had not taken the legacy. Then life did something strange. It brought the past back to his door. Derek came first. He arrived in a clean truck, wearing an expensive jacket, carrying the uncomfortable face of a man who knew he was not walking into a simple conversation. Michael met him outside the workshop. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Derek cleared his throat. "I heard you were doing well." Michael said nothing. That sentence alone was not worth much. Derek kept going. "I wanted to come by and talk." Talk, another strange word. Where was this hunger to talk when the locks were changed? Where was this openness when the barn was stripped from him in his grief? Michael felt the old hurt move inside him like a shadow waking up. But he had lived with God long enough in hidden seasons to know this moment was a test too. But not a test of success, a test of the heart. So he nodded once and said, "Then talk." Derek admitted what Michael had already known. There had been greed, pressure from relatives, fear about money, self-interest. He said he had told himself it was just business and paperwork, because that made it easier to live with what he had done. But over time, guilt had grown too loud to ignore. "I was wrong," Derek said finally. No defense, no excuses left. Just those 3 words. Michael looked at him for a long time. Some apologies arrived late. Too late to restore what was lost. Too late to erase damage, but still important. Still human. Still heavy. "I cannot change what you did," Michael said quietly, "and neither can you. But I'm not carrying this poison anymore." Derek's eyes filled. Because forgiveness, when it is real, does not pretend the wound never happened. It simply refuses to let the wound keep ruling the future. Aaron came months later, not to apologize at first, to ask for help. His small business had failed. His marriage was under pressure. He looked thinner, tired, humbled by life in the way some people only become after comfort stops protecting them. He stood in Michael's workshop, glancing at the tools, the shelves, the steady movement of work, and finally said, "I should have been there for you." Michael nodded once. Yes, he should have. Some truths do not need drama, they just need to be faced. Aaron looked down. "I did not know what to do with your pain, so I backed away. I hate that I did that." Michael did not make it easy for him. He did not rush to say it was okay, because it had not been okay. Abandonment in a hard season leaves marks. But he also did not reject him with the same coldness he had once received. Instead, he said, "Life taught both of us something. You learned what cowardice costs. I learned who I had to become when people disappeared." As for Claire, she never returned to his life in the same way. He heard through town circles that she had moved, dated someone else, and built a different future. For a while, that knowledge still stung. Then, one day, it stopped. Not because her choice no longer mattered historically, because it no longer ruled his identity. That is one of the quiet victories people do not talk about enough. The day someone who once broke your heart no longer has the power to define your worth. Michael eventually married a different woman named Hannah years later, after healing had done its deep work. She did not meet him in his easy season. She met him after pain had already carved depth into him. And because of that, what they built together was steady, humble, and real. By the 5th year, Michael's workshop had become known across several towns. He built custom pieces, handled repairs, taught apprentices, restored old woodwork others would have thrown away. He was not a celebrity. He was something better, trusted. People drove long distances not because he was cheap, but because his work lasted, because there was care in it. Because when he built something, people felt that it held more than function. It held patience. It held pain transformed. It held a man's testimony without needing to speak it out loud. Sometimes young men would linger after dropping off materials, asking him small questions that were not really about wood at all. How did you start this? How did you not quit? What do you do when everything falls apart? Michael would smile a little, wipe his hands on a rag, and answer simply, "You pray. You stand. You do the next honest thing. Then you do it again tomorrow." It sounded simple, because truth often does. Living it is the hard part. And now, if you are still here listening, this part is for you. Maybe your story does not look like Michael's. Maybe you did not lose a barn, a father, a house, or a relationship all in the same way. But maybe you know what it feels like when life suddenly becomes unfamiliar. Maybe you know what it feels like when the people you thought would carry you step away. Maybe you know what it feels like to sit in a room after midnight, asking God questions that feel too heavy for language. If that is you, hear this clearly. Your worst season is not proof that your life is over. Your abandonment is not proof that you are worthless. Your loneliness is not proof that God has left. Sometimes the seasons that feel most empty are the seasons where God is doing the deepest construction. And it starts within you, not outside, inside, where character is shaped, where pride is broken, where dependence on people is stripped away, where the soul learns the difference between applause and foundation. Michael thought he was losing everything, and in one sense, he was. But what he did not know in the beginning was that life was also removing false supports, the supports that looked strong until pressure exposed them, the people who sounded loyal until cost tested their hearts, the future he had imagined, which had to die before a stronger future could be born. That is the hard truth, but it is still true. Some things leave your life, not because God is cruel, but because he is building you on something deeper than comfort. So what do when everyone walks away? You grieve honestly. You pray honestly. You stop begging broken people to become your saviors. You stand up, even if your legs shake. You repair what you can. You work with what is left. You refuse to let bitterness become your identity. You keep your heart open to God, even when the night feels long. And you remember this: being abandoned by people does not mean being abandoned by heaven. Michael learned that the hard way, in silence, in cold rooms, in lonely mornings. At work, nobody applauded, in pain that had no quick fix. But he learned it. And because he learned it, he rose. He rose into a life with depth. He rose into work with meaning. He rose into peace that was no longer dependent on who stayed or who left. He rose into the kind of strength that does not need to shout to be real. And maybe that is what is being built in you too. So if you are in your cabin season right now, if the night feels cold, if the people you trusted are gone, if all you have is pain, prayer, and one more sunrise you did not ask for, do not despise that place. It may be the ground where God teaches you who you really are. It may be the season where your roots go down before your life rises up. It may be the chapter you will one day look back on and say, that was the place where I thought I was dying, but I was actually being rebuilt. And if all you can whisper tonight is, God, show me how to stand, that is enough. That is more than enough. Because sometimes one honest prayer in the dark becomes the first brick in a brand new life. Michael's story proves that. And maybe, just maybe, your story will too. If this story touched your heart, hold on to this one line: when people let go, God can still build. And if you are in a rebuilding season right now, remember this: you are not finished, you are being formed. Subscribe to this channel to stay motivated as you journey through life. Thanks for watching.